History class told you the Anti-Federalists lost. Your textbook probably gave them a paragraph, maybe two, sandwiched between a map of colonial trade routes and a quiz on the 3/5 compromise. But here is the uncomfortable truth that nobody put on your standardized test. The Anti-Federalists did not lose the argument. They won it. We just forgot to listen. Welcome back. Today we are doing something dangerous. We are going to talk about the most important political debate in American history, the one that still decides your tax bill, your healthcare options, and whether some bureaucrat in a building you have never visited gets to tell your town what to do. We are talking about Federalists versus Anti-Federalists, the great American argument of 1787 to 1788, and we are taking absolutely no prisoners. Now, before we dive in, let me set the scene. Imagine two groups of people staring at a brand new house. The Federalists built the house. They're proud of it. Strong foundation, high ceilings, very impressive architecture. The Anti-Federalists are standing at the front door asking one very reasonable question: where are the locks? And the Federalists said, do not worry about it, trust us. And also, here are 85 essays explaining why you should trust us. That collection of essays became the Federalist Papers, and they are genuinely brilliant, and Alexander Hamilton wrote most of them, which means they are also slightly exhausting. Here is where the satire begins, and I promise it is earned. Alexander Hamilton, in Federalist number 78, described the judiciary as the least dangerous branch of government. The courts, he argued, had neither force nor will. They could not enforce anything on their own. They just interpreted the law. Feel free to pause right now and let out whatever sound you need to make in response to that statement, because the Supreme Court has since decided presidential elections, reshaped the entire American healthcare system, and redefined the boundaries of free speech, privacy, and basically everything else that touches your daily life. Least dangerous branch. Sure, Alexander. Sure. Now the Anti-Federalists saw this coming. Not the specific cases, obviously, but the general drift. Brutus, which was the pen name used by one of the most important Anti-Federalist writers, argued that the federal courts would expand their own power over time until they became essentially unchecked. He wrote this in 1787. He was describing 2026. This man deserves a podcast. The real battle inside this debate was never just about courts or executive power. It was about two competing visions of what a citizen actually is. To the Federalists, a citizen was a participant in a large commercial republic, protected by institutional checks and a well-constructed government. Sophisticated. Elegant. Very good on paper. To the Anti-Federalists, a citizen was something more personal and more demanding. A citizen was a steward. You were responsible for your local community, your local soil, your local institutions. Citizenship required virtue, not just a voter registration card. This brings us to one of the most genuinely important tensions in the entire founding era, and it is one that your textbook almost certainly glossed over. The Supremacy Clause versus the 10th Amendment. The Supremacy Clause, found in Article 6 of the Constitution, says that federal law is the supreme law of the land. The 10th Amendment, ratified a few years later as part of the Bill of Rights that the Anti-Federalists basically forced into existence, says that powers not delegated to the federal government are reserved to the states and to the people. These two provisions have been in a slow-motion wrestling match for over 2 centuries. That match is still happening right now. It is deciding your taxes. It is deciding your health care. It is deciding whether your state can make a decision without waiting for permission from a city that is geographically and culturally about as connected to your hometown as the moon. Patrick Henry, George Mason, and the chorus of grumpy, brilliant, frequently ignored Anti-Federalists warned that centralizing power was not just a structural risk. It was a moral one. They believed that when government moves far from the people it governs, it stops being accountable to them. And when government stops being accountable, the people stop being virtuous citizens and start being subjects. The words were different in the 18th century, but the concern is identical to conversations happening in your town hall right now. And then there is the question that cuts deeper than any clause or amendment. What happens when the parchment barriers fail? What happens when the written limits on power stop working, not because someone tore them up, but because the population stopped caring enough to enforce them? The founders across both camps understood that a constitution is not a self-executing machine. It requires a people who take it seriously. No document, no matter how carefully worded, can substitute for civic character. If the population treats the Constitution like a historical artifact in a museum rather than a living obligation, the republic built around it becomes a beautiful, decorative, completely hollow shell. The Anti-Federalists were not the losers of a political debate. History tried to file them under opposition and move on. But if you actually read Brutus, if you sit with Patrick Henry's thundering speeches, if you trace the 10th Amendment from ratification to today, you start to realize these were not grumpy obstructionists. They were grumpy prophets. And the grumpy prophets had a point. So the next time someone tells you Washington knows best, remember the locks. Remember that the House needed them. Remember that the people who asked for them were laughed at, debated into a corner, and ultimately proven correct across nearly 2.5 centuries of American political history. Stop treating the federal government like a cathedral. It is not sacred. It is a structure built by human beings with human flaws and human ambitions. And your job as a citizen, your actual job, is to keep your hand on that leash. That is your citizen's guide to reclaiming the 10th, drafted in the spirit of every grumpy sentinel who saw it coming and said so anyway. If this video made you think, made you argue with your screen, or made you finally understand why your political science professor looked so tired all the time, do us a favor. Like this video, subscribe to the channel, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and drop your thoughts in the comments below. We read everything. The Republic demands it.